Welcome on this July morning. Today's webinar, we're going to talk about what you can do from where you sit or stand in your workplace to create the kind of culture that works. So, I want to introduce you to a gentleman named Michael Lowe. Michael Lowe hired Keen Alignment about 4 years ago to work on culture in their organization. And when Michael started in the company, started in HR, then he moved to sales, and then he was given the general manager title. And what he found as a general manager is that the organization, people were at each other's throats. Production was arguing with corporate, and people felt disconnected. There was a lot of hostility. And Michael made a commitment to inspire leadership and empower leaders to thrive. And Michael spent 1.5 years taking every single member, I don't know what's going on with the camera, every single member of the organization through a deep alignment workshop. And inside the deep alignment workshop, they learned how to communicate in a way, rather than blaming people, how to communicate in a way that they were respectful and diligent and responsible for their impact on the space. And the team got stronger and stronger and stronger. And they learned to work together, not in harmony, because it's not that easy, but in engagement. And they had 2 of their best years in the company history as a result of working on culture. They were more efficient. They had less conflict. They had less waste. They had more promotions and less turnover. So in this 45 minutes, we're going to talk about things that you know. You already know it. It's at the top of mind awareness. And when we look at culture, we also look at what do we know? What do we already know? How do we know what to do? But then we also look at what do we know that we don't know? What are the things that we're aware of that we need to learn, like that we're deficient in? And then the third piece is, what don't we know that we don't even know? In other words, what are our blind spots? What are my blind spots as an employee of the company? What are your blind spots? Because it's really easy to look out at work and see what everybody else is doing wrong. But it's harder to look in the mirror and look at maybe what you're doing or who you're being that's contributing to chaos, craziness, mayhem, stress. And so part of culture is looking at what we know, looking at what we don't know, and then being courageous and curious enough to look at what we don't know that we don't know, and we don't even know it. So today we're going to cover 5 key points. 1, we're going to answer the question, what will it take to be a market leader? In other words, now here's the truth. We have all been through crazy hell over the last 3 years. It's not stopping. There's a whole new wave of COVID. People in my own company are home right now. People in my clients are at home. But it's not just COVID or what the next pandemic. We're headed into a recession. It is going to be challenging. People in my own family are being laid off. It is hard. But what does it take to be a market leader as an employee, to be a market leader as a candidate, to be a market leader as a manager in a company? Because we're going to need to be market leaders to make it through the next 5 crazy years of our economic cycle. Second, how do we unlock the power of an emergent culture? Whether we have a skinny version of our company and we're lean and mean, or whether we're hiring a lot of people, how do we create emergence so each person is accountable and responsible for their impact? How do we tap into the collective energy of the workforce? Energy is more powerful than matter. Hopefully you'll hear me say that a lot. But think about a storm. Matter is the barn in a storm. A tornado comes in and blows up that barn, like in the movie Twister, and flows those cows around and the cars. Energy is more powerful and pervasive than matter. How do we tap into the collective energy of our people? And how do we use and utilize and build trust as a force multiplier of creativity, of innovation, of engagement? And how do we adjust ourselves and develop ourselves to be leaders in the 21st century? Now, let's tell the truth. It's always been chaotic in our world. But we have things like climate change, like mass disease and viruses, and global economy, and work at home, and all sorts of things that we never have had to deal with before at the scale we have to deal with it. We've exceeded 7.9 billion people on the planet. So leading in the 21st century does take something very different than leading in the 80s or leading in the 90s. So let's talk about where it begins. When we look at how to be a market leader, we create really strong initiatives. We create great strategy. But when strategy clashes with culture, culture will always win. It's the people in the organization that stop progress. It's the attitudes in the organization that stop progress. And when I say people, I mean all people, including executives, including frontline managers, including supervisors, including employees. So when we look at strategy and we look at why it fails, it's the number one reason initiatives fail and flounder. So let's take a step back. The organization only has one purpose, and that's to turn the leader, the executive, the CEO, the C-suite, to turn their vision into a reality. And when that doesn't happen, the leader's role is to intervene and to create a culture of people committed who can give their highest and best level of contribution. Culture is the access, the vehicle to fulfill on strategy. That's how it works. So regardless of the role you're in, if you're on this webinar today, you were invited because you care about culture, you have a commitment towards culture, you lead culture in one way or another, whether it's at the top or in an HR role or in a line management or vice president role. So as a visionary leader, knowing culture is important. You bring wisdom from all of your past, all of the things that have worked and that haven't worked. You're driven to excel or you wouldn't even be on this call. You're committed to leading in a way that brings people from their head and their heart to the table and brings their full contribution. And you've invested decades in learning and development. Now, you might say, well, hey, I was invited because I'm a recent college graduate and I'm in a job that works on culture. But you've got people investing in you who have decades of training and can bring you along. So you fit the mold. So what we find is even with all of this challenge, people are still frustrated because the team isn't performing where they want them to. They're exasperated, they're burnt out because there's decisions that were agreed on and everybody went around the room and said, I'm in, but things aren't getting done and it's taking too long. We're exhausted from the time and effort of dealing with people conflicts and strife and drama and disagreements and stonewalling or ignoring people or aggressive defensive behavior or passive defensive, people waiting to be told to do things when that's their job. All of this leads to complete exhaustion in the workplace, frustration, exasperation, exhaustion, and overwhelm, just trying to keep up with the pace of what's going on. Not sure what's happening with my camera, but we're trying to fix it. So fundamentally, if you want to be a market leader, and actually if you want to thrive and survive in the next 5 years, we are all going to have to get lean, mean, and committed to outperforming the market. Taking our strategies and amplifying them, and how that happens is 3 ways. I think it's getting fuzzy because I'm moving, but we just have to be one step ahead of them.
Wow.
Hello. more practice. Collaboration, innovation, and motivation. These are the three tenets to amplify strategies and outperform the market. And they're the three tenets of creating an emergent culture. All of these, you might say, well, Maji, those are soft skills: collaboration, innovation, and motivation. But they're not soft skills anymore. We need, as leaders, to tap into the intrinsic motivation of the people on our team. We need to know why they work for us, what's important, and what they want to get out of this role. Because if we're clear on that, we can help them grow and be better and stronger and more proactive and more responsible in their role. Collaboration is when those people who are all motivated are now working together, not for their own agenda, but for the goals and objectives of the organization to make something powerful happen. And then innovation, when you've got people highly motivated, working together, innovation happens. Processes get streamlined. New ideas come into being. New products, new goals. This is what happens when we unleash the power of people in the organization. So in order to do that, in order to evolve, in order to be in the market, we need to be creating new. We need to be destroying old. What doesn't work anymore? What's left over from the 80s or the 90s or even the early 2000s, the break of this new millennium and this new 100 years? What is no longer working for us that we need to stop doing? What is wasting our people's time? What attitudes, beliefs about employment, about hours, about clocking time? What needs to go away? What attitudes about mistrust or micromanagement or holding on so tight need to be destroyed? And then what is working in our organization that we need to maintain, that we need to stick with, that we need to honor, that we need to value? That's how you evolve in your market, is by creating new, destroying what needs to go, and maintaining what works. So whoever does this best and fastest wins. And I urge you to get really responsible. We are going in to a full-blown recession. Start looking at the layoff numbers, which means we need to be better, we need to be smarter, we need to be faster, and we need to have our team be effective. And the only way to do that is culture. It's optimizing organizational culture. So let's talk about what the problem is. Our best efforts, all of the work, all of the strategy, all the 2-hour team building and the foosball and the let's buy everybody lunch. The problem is the best effort gets us here, where we have the nice people, the passive people being complacent, happy where they are, and enable poor behavior. Believe it or not, even the nice people cause trouble. They give false accolades, false positives, saying things are great when they're not. That's called cordial hypocrisy, which we'll talk about later. Caretaking, oh, you poor thing, I'm sorry, you're overworked, I'll take work away from you, when that's their job. Covering up mistakes, not talking about mistakes. This is not nice at all. It's actually passive defensive. Then we've got the people who are agitated by this, and they're imposing and imitating and intimidating. They are aggressive defensive. Their anger instills fear and division and us against them. They cause anxiety because when bad things happen, they're not calm. When bad things happen, they're aggressive. And so you have these opposing forces that cause entanglement. And when people are entangled, when they're arguing, when they're fighting, when they're defending, when they're waiting to be told or hoping nobody knows that they're not doing their job, it causes people to chase the market, constrains the strategies, and by the way, this is what leads to massive layoffs during recession. Because we overhired thinking we needed more people, and then found out that, wait a second, we've got performance issues. We've got issues that we're not dealing with. And so then when a recession comes, we clean house again. We can prevent this if we're smart, if we're bright, if we're on top of it. How we prevent it is we eliminate VUCA, volatility, uncertainty, chaos, complexity, confusion, and ambiguity. This is what gets in the way of my strategies, my vision as a leader, your strategies, your vision as a leader. This is what gets in the way of getting work done. Things are over complex. They're uncertain. People aren't sure who's doing what. There's no communication. There's meetings happening, but real conversation and truth is not being told in those meetings. We're covering up, or we're getting aggressive, or we're stepping in and doing people's work for them. So we have to deal with this word chaos, and we have to say, how do we eliminate volatility, uncertainty, confusion, and ambiguity? And where it begins is a commitment to transformation. And out of all the transformational work that I've done, which is really over 25 years, the best visual I've ever seen is from a company called the Hoffman process. And this is the cycle of transformation. It begins with self-awareness. Now, if you're on this webinar, you've been invited by us, so you've either had an opportunity to take a leadership assessment, or you will have an opportunity in a follow-up to take a leadership assessment. But the lowest score globally we find in the leadership assessment that we and over 10,000 people like me utilize for organizations is self-awareness. It's the lowest score. What this means is people are unaware of their impact. They're unclear that they are having an impact on others in the workspace, whether it's positive or negative. So awareness is the key to the beginning of the cycle of transformation. Self-awareness, group awareness at every level. Then there's expression. What is happening in the organization that's not working? We need to speak it. We need to tell the truth about what's not working in performance, what's not working with process, what's not working with people working together and collaborating together. We need to we need to express that. And then we need to first forgive. We're just giving you a little dance show here. We need to first forgive ourselves for our role in the matter of ineffectiveness, for our role in the matter of not delivering at the level we need to deliver, not being responsible, not owning our role. And then we need to forgive others. Because if we hold grudges, if we make ourselves wrong, if we're pissed off at people, and if we're blaming or shaming ourselves for others, you'll never have transformation. It takes first self-awareness, then group awareness, then expression to the self, then the group, then compassion and forgiveness for the self and the group, and then choosing a new way of being. This is where people create their noble cause, their core values from this place. If you don't do the work, if you don't do the work on the cycle to get here, any values you create, any noble cause you create will be like putting whipped cream on a poo-poo pie, because you will not be telling the truth about what's not working. So these new ways of being is the beginning of culture. And there's a cycle to get to the doorway. This is just the doorway. So next, let's talk about what it means to have an emergent culture, what it looks like. Now, emergence is when things happen. The team is leading. The team is solving problem. The team is proactively saying, what's my responsibility in delivering in this noble cause? What's my role? What do I need to be doing? What do I need to be owning to get this accomplished without the boss having to say, you do this, you do this, you do this, you do this, you do this. Because that's not emergence. Emergence is intrinsic. It's when you develop a noble cause where people go from their individual goals and what they need to do and what they're told to do to working from the mission. If I'm solely working from the mission, what do I need to do next? That's people growing in a noble cause. People using their unique talents from just doing tasks to bringing their highest level of intelligence and not just owning the role, but sharing their knowledge, their philosophy, their beliefs, their action steps with everybody. That's people unleashing their unique talents. And then everybody operating from shared values, working in sync together to get work done, from divergent to congruent. So you need these three pieces: noble cause, unique talents, and shared values. And then this is where the secret sauce is. You get people in the company for the right reasons, and then you find out why they're there. Are they there for more than a paycheck? Hopefully. And then how do you tap into their intrinsic motivation so they show up fully motivated, ready to contribute? And then they take their unique talents using the shared values and create exceptional teamwork for the noble cause. Then you look at the noble cause and the unique talents, and people bring their energy, their ambition, their motivation, their brilliance, their collective intelligence for unrivaled innovation. And that's what creates an emergent culture. Now, let me explain what I mean by emergent. Emergent is a sudden, unexpected breakthrough in results, and it's not directed by the leader. The leader hires the right people, gives them a clear understanding of what needs to get accomplished, and then says, you folks, you go create it. You're independently responsible to create it, and makes it really clear that that's the condition of satisfaction for what we're working on. Now, I'm going to do my best as the leader to create an environment where this fertility can happen, and y'all got to do your best to own your role and your contribution for this noble cause. So I want to introduce you, if you don't know, Satya Nadella. Satya Nadella was a long-term employee at Microsoft. He came in during Microsoft's darkest hour and was promoted, clearly vetted and promoted to be their CEO. He has completely turned around Microsoft, and how he did it was by bringing in Eastern philosophies of how do we work with each other? How do we show and communicate when things are not working without volatility and frustration and anger? Because Microsoft was a war zone before Satya Nadella took over. They were losing market share. His philosophy is only the CEO can set the tone that captures the soul of the collective, and that every organization needs an enduring mission, a noble goal, a noble cause. Here's what happened when Satya Nadella took over Microsoft. They were in the toilet, in the toilet, in the toilet, in the toilet. He took over in 2014. Look at that increase in stock share, because he said, in order for us to be the number one technology provider, we need a noble goal. We need a cause. We need to have people working here that believe in that cause and treat people the right way. Microsoft used to be, if I had an idea and somebody came to me with another idea, I would take their idea, say it was mine, add it to mine, and never give them credit, because it was all dog eat dog. People looking out only for themselves. It was ego driven by not just Bill Gates, but by the leader that was after him. And if you read my book, Ignite Culture, that will be coming out in October, we go deep into how this man, Satya Nadella, transformed this organization. So Microsoft's noble cause is to empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. And if you Google Microsoft one day, and on YouTube, you'll find their video. Their whole onboarding video for employees begins with who the employee is and their intrinsic motivation. No accident. Then it starts with how they start their morning and with their family. It doesn't even look at them at work until 4 minutes into the video, because Microsoft believes that it's about individual human beings coming together as part of the collective to create this noble cause and to deliver on this noble cause. So if you want to be a market leader, if you want to thrive through this next recession, through whatever pandemics are thrown our way, you have a choice. You can keep things the same get a little bit better, then slack off again and get a little bit better, and then slack off again and then get a little bit better, and you wind up where you are now. But chances are, with all the competing factors and the market continuing to change, we do nothing, we will not be around. So this is a call for you to optimize culture, to cultivate culture, to bring spirit into your organization so you can go faster with a group of people committed to the same things. Now let's talk about how to do it. Begin by telling the truth about who's on the team. Do you have complacency? Are there people waiting to be told to do their work? Or waiting to be told if you don't do your work, you're not going to have a job? Or are they so happy with the way things were 5 years ago and 8 years ago and 10 years ago that they really don't want to change? Or do you have resistance like, hell no, I'm not changing. I am not moving to make any changes for this organization because I know my way is the right way. This is toxic, and this will continue to be toxic as the world throws us new curveballs. And if there's anything I have learned and my clients have learned over this COVID experience is we have to be ready for anything and everything, and our team has to be agile enough to make it happen. What we want, what we teach, what we provide for our clients through training of their executives and the people in the organization is to create proactive and emergence. Proactive is the first step. This is where people move from complacency, waiting to be told what to do, or tasks, or waiting to be pushed, to, no, I'm taking lead because I'm a leader. Everybody's a leader. Everybody's proactive. Everybody looks at what can I do to make this organization better? What can I do to contribute to the noble cause? And then to move into collaboration, innovation, and motivation, which is emergence. We're not saying every person in the organization needs to be here in both places in emergence, but gosh, you got to get at least 30% of your people in proactivity. And if you're a small company, you can't afford not to have everybody in proactivity. If you're a small company, complacent people will kill the business. I promise you, because for every dollar you're spending on that payroll, you ought to be getting times 5 back in new ideas, in improvements, in self-generated work. That's how you become a market leader. You are the sum of the system. So what is important to do is expand your capacity to see the system, not just Mary or John or Billy, but to see the whole system. Now, when I show this graphic, what I tell people is if it's just 2 people in a conversation, you have a chance of having 4 missed opportunities for understanding and delivery of communication. If you have 10, you have an opportunity for 100 miscommunications in listening and in speaking. So for however big your company is, multiply it, square it, and that's how many breakdowns in communication happen. It's not always just performance. It's communication, it's listening, it's delivery, it's incomplete communication, it's lack of follow-up. All of these things impact the human system, and when you look at your system as a human system, it allows you to see the system as a whole and what the system needs to become a healthy, intentional, high-performance human system. In culture work that actually works, it's done at the system level. And it begins at the executive team, always begins at the top, then it's the next rung, and then it's the culture samurais, the people committed to being the culture task force in the organization. In my book, I talk about get 10%. If you can get 10%, you're on your way. What you really want is that 10% to get another 10%, and then that 20% to get another 10%. So 30% will take you where you want to go, and then you'll have to start removing toxicity all along the way, because toxicity, for every 1 toxic person, they will take out 5. So it's about expanding your capacity to see the whole, understanding what a human system is. And we do that through the 7 levels of personal, group, and organizational effectiveness. I'm a distributor and a licensed provider from an organization called Be Above Leadership. They teach teachers, and we work in these 7 levels. These are energy levels or levels of consciousness. Energy is always more powerful than matter. The energy of how people are feeling sets the tone for the organization. If the energy is lackadaisical, complacent, casual, I'll get to it when I get to it, you're going to have an organization that doesn't perform very well. If the energy is anger, frustration, agitation, you're going to have an organization who's very clunky in getting work done, and you're going to have way too many people on your payroll because the angry people will step over the passive people, and then you'll be paying 2 people to do the same job, and you don't want to do that. So let's talk about the 7 levels of effectiveness. The lowest level of effectiveness is actually ineffectiveness, and that's hopelessness. This is when people are in despair. They've given up believing things will ever get better. And then there's fear. There's this underlying concern of anxiety, of people protecting themselves, covering things up, worried, waiting for the next shoe to drop. When we are in fear and hopelessness, the adrenaline and the cortisol are taking over our real thinking, and we can't access our highest level of intelligence. You can sense an organization in fear by walking around, smelling it out, asking a few questions, seeing how many risks are being taken, seeing how many improvements are happening. And then there's frustration. Now, frustration is the highest level of ineffectiveness, but it's still ineffective. Frustration is ineffective because, like I said, the angry ones are stepping over the ones not getting the work done and doing it themselves. So it creates even more division. And it's tough. And in frustration, we still have we still have cortisol, adrenaline, norepinephrine running through our brain. And all we can see is the one thing that's not working. So we don't acknowledge people. We don't celebrate successes. We're always in fighting against the competition, fighting against each other, fighting against credit, fighting against purchasing, fighting against operation, fighting against sales. With all that fighting, we are wasting time. We are wasting time, and we're leaving money, profit, energy, engagement on the table. The first step to power and freedom, and we're not going to go back in the PowerPoint, but that cycle of transformation is creating a new way of being, creating a noble cause, creating our core values, creating our mission. And this is when we bring the organization into courage. Courage is a belief in something that's possible, a belief in something that even though you don't have any evidence it could happen, you believe it will be true. Once you're encouraged, your executive team, and then the next level, and then the entire organization is nurtured and believing in this powerful place that you want to take them, then engagement's possible. When people are leaning in and bringing their whole self to work and owning their role and taking initiative and doing even more than is on their to-do list because it needs to be done. Then you've got innovation possible when we release our personal agendas, our silos, and we're working together in service of the big picture. And maybe then you've got synchronicity, which is when everybody is working in sync. Lots more to talk about with the 7 levels in other webinars. It's a great barometer. So it all begins with a noble cause and a vision. Your noble cause cannot be, I want to make more money. The noble cause can't be to be better than the competition. The noble cause has to be something that pulls people in, that taps into their heart, their head, and their gut, and they say, I want to be there. Keen Alignment's noble cause is to forever liberate the human spirit at work. The only people who would be interested in that is people that want to liberate their own human spirit and people that want to be catalysts and change agents for that noble cause. So your noble cause has to be inspiring. It has to be engaging, and it has to be big. Something like that will take forever to do, like Microsoft, to empower all people on the planet to be more productive. So next is taking that intentional vision and or mission and your organizational values and build it into a people strategy. How will you elevate the human system? How will you wake people up to what's possible? How will you optimize people and tap into their intrinsic motivation and get them working together? How will you help people be self-actualized at work? Hey, if you work at this company, you're going to grow, you're going to be pulled to be the best person you can be. You're going to be held accountable for being extraordinary. You're going to own your role. And you, in your role, are going to work with all these other folks. And together, you're going to tap into your collective intelligence and help us achieve our noble cause. So you need to look at the entire cycle of employment, how you're hiring, how you're onboarding, how you're bringing people in, how you're training them. Are you developing them as leaders? Leadership development is one of the most important parts of creating a high performance organizational culture, because how the leaders go is how the folks go in the organization. And there's this level of leadership. This is our model that we work with Coaches Training Institute, Coactive Training Institute. It's from command and control, which is the old way to do it. You do it because I said so. Command and control, by the way, most of your employees have been trained to wait to be told to do their job. They have been raised in environments that they need to be told to do things. We don't want this. This takes time, money, and it's wasteful, and it's not inspiring. We want elevate and engage, or engage and elevate. And it begins with me doing my work on my own leadership. It's me having an individual leadership stake, and then making that leadership stake and that vision for who I am as a leader and who I am in my life, and bringing it to work, and then creating vision and direction for the people that work for me at every level of leadership. Remember, volatility, uncertainty, chaos, and ambiguity don't work, so people need direction. They need to know where they're going, what they're responsible for. And then we need to get out of the way after we've tapped into their hearts and heads and pointed them in the right direction, and we need to partner with them. What do they need from us? What do our other leaders need? How do we work as a cohesive team? And then we need to get out of the way even further and move to the background and encourage them and support them and coach them into taking more responsibility, taking more risks, being the leader that they can be. And then we need to actually even move further outside and start to use what we're seeing, what we're smelling, what we're hearing, what we're learning, and even tap into our own intuition and create innovative solutions. So the new model for leadership is engage and elevate, and it always begins with you. And the top driver to everything I've talked about is trust. Trust is a force multiplier. So let's talk about what trust is not. Trust is not having a set of core values and then not living by them, or only holding the lower level people responsible for living those core values and even firing them and writing them up, but not holding the executive team responsible for those core values. Trust is doing what you say you're going to do. I take this job. I wed this job. I take a paycheck for this job. I deliver on what I say I'm going to do. As a leader, we're going in this direction. Stay in that direction unless you publicly declare that you're making a change and why you're making the change. If you have one-on-ones with people, keep them. If you tell people, I'm going to onboard you, I'm going to trade you, I'm going to work side by side with you, do what you say. All we have in this life is our relationship with our word, and our relationship with word is our intrinsic integrity, and that drives trust. When you promise to do something and you don't do it, you erode trust with your colleagues, with your bosses, and with each other. So there's three kinds, then there's strategic anchors. These anchors help people build trust. Southwest Airlines has 3 strategic anchors. These are how decisions are made in the workplace. At Southwest Airlines, keep fare prices low, create loyal customers, make sure the planes are on time. These 3 anchors help all employees at all levels make independent decisions, know what to do next. If you want people to think for themselves, have intrinsic motivation, tap into their collective intelligence, take risks, and be an emergent culture, you've got to give them decision-making framework, and anchors do this. Next is values. Tell the truth. Are your core values aspirational? Like someday maybe we'll be high achievement organization, or are they inspirational? We are a high achievement organization. We celebrate high achievement. We eradicate poor achievement. We talk about poor performance. We have consequences for poor performance. We celebrate success. We celebrate milestones. We set good goals. There is a big difference between doing what you say in your values and hoping that someday you'll be good enough to have those values. You might justify as a leader, well, we're not those values yet, but we want to be. But what your employees are going to see is you guys aren't who you say you are. You say these are your values, but you don't walk your talk. So we have to tell the truth about aspirational versus inspirational. Inspirational is when our employees see us walking our talk. Aspirational is when they see us wishing and hoping and praying for something that just isn't true. And it breeds lack of trust. So there's 3 levels of trust. There's simple trust. I trust, I'm a 4-year-old and I trust my mom and dad. Or I trust that I can walk down the street with my dog and there's not gonna be an armed robbery. That's simple trust. Now, I know when I say that these days, you guys are probably like, well, you can't always trust walking down the street. But we used to be able to trust simple trust more. Then there's blind trust. You meet someone, you fall aimlessly in love, and you give them your checkbook. Or you hire someone and they say, I'm gonna do all these things, and you never check on them. That's blind trust. Authentic trust is reciprocal. I say I'm gonna do something, we talk about it, we check in when it's done, we celebrate success, and we close the loop. Authentic trust is I can say to you, hey, I'm disappointed that you didn't do what you said. I'm frustrated that I have to keep reminding you to do your job. Or I'm confused. You told me that this was my responsibility, but then you told 3 other people to do it. So it goes back and forth, top, bottom, side, side. Authentic trust is telling the truth about what's working and not working and letting people know where they stand. Far too often, I hear that somebody is replacing someone on the executive team, and everybody else on the executive team knows it, but the executive that's being replaced. That's not authentic trust, and what that does is that builds lack of trust between everybody else on the executive team. If you're listening to this and you're an executive and you got problems with your other executives, don't talk about it among them. Talk about it with your coach. Talk about it with your spiritual guide. Talk about it with your partner, but don't talk about it with each other. Authentic trust is based on doing what you say. It's based on confidentiality. It's based on collaboration, and it's based on closing the loop and keeping agreements. Last thing about trust, cordial hypocrisy, going into a meeting, everybody agreeing, we're going to do this, yeah, we're in, and then leaving the meeting and having the meeting after the meeting, and bad-mouthing somebody or gossiping leads to cordial hypocrisy. Everybody says yes, but what they really mean is no. And this is the biggest barrier to high performance in any organization, and it happens at most companies. So, leading the way for transformation. Let's just recap what we talked about. What will it take to be a market leader? What's it going to take from you? What's it going to take from every person listening to this? What's it going to take from our goals to our strategy, to our implementation, to how we deal with our human system? What is emergent culture? It's when you bring a noble cause together with knowledge and intrinsic talent from people, and then you all share beliefs, values, and you operate together, and you do it in sync. And the boss doesn't have to tell everybody what to do. That's emergent culture. People are free to co-create with each other. Tapping into the energy of the collective, this is about innovation. This is bringing all that talent together and that intrinsic motivation together and having people solve problems. Making trust a multiplier. I'll keep it simple. Do what you say you're going to do. And if you can't, clean it up early and often. Hold each other accountable in a kind, compassionate way. People will screw up. They'll screw up a lot. have humility, forgiveness, and have agreements that we're not going to do the same mistake twice or three times. And then learn to lead for the 21st century. Really focus on that leader within, developing that leader within, developing self-esteem, developing self-belief. I want to tell you about Andrea McKinsey. I have been working with her for the last decade. Andrea started in her organization. She was replacing a general manager that wasn't doing well. He was struggling in all the areas we've talked about. She came in and she said, my vision for myself as a leader is that I inspire future generations to be stewards of the land. Andrea has built an organization from 5 to 50 people. She has a complete management team. She invests in that management team. They're all continually working on their self, and she includes the head of HR in that leadership team training, because the head of HR is the conduit for culture. Andrea's done remarkable things. Check out Santa Clara Valley Open Space Authority. They are saving the planet 1 acre at a time. So we invite you to take the first step of being a culture samurai. We have a year-long program and we're launching it on 9/23. We have a program called Ignite Your Power. It's a 2.5-day deep immersion leadership training in Sonoma, California. And you can check the event out by going to our website under keenalignment.com and our programs, and you look at Ignite Your Power. But you can also just click on this link. Vivian's going to put it in the chat box and check it out. We are giving a discount code if you register today, $200 off. If you want to send 4 or more people, you can contact Lynee, Lynee, at Keen Alignment, and she will give you a corporate discount. This is the first step in empowering yourself and your team to take organizational culture into your own hands. We are training you, beginning in this first workshop, with working on yourself and getting yourself ready. Then there's a second one about elevating leadership for others. And then there's a third one about advancing culture. But they're standalone programs. You don't have to do all three. But one of the things Keen Alignment is doing for our noble cause of forever liberating the human spirit is we're democratizing cultural alignment and teaching leaders to own culture from the inside out, beginning with them, their direct team, and then the entire organization. Thank you for joining us today. We appreciate your time and attention. We've got lots of free resources. Check out our website, check out our YouTube, and have a wonderful, productive, high-velocity day. Thank you.